BMF was the first group that was accused of being both a criminal organization and a record label.
As much as you want to drive, they got as much work for you. It's never a shortage of work. It's never a shortage of kilos of or millions of dollars for BMF.
She was convicted of running a huge criminal enterprise stretching from Atlanta to Detroit and several other states.
In the early 2000s, Big Meech was throwing parties with white tigers and standing next to Diddy and Jay-Z in music videos. But what if the whole thing was really a front?
Everybody is from somewhere else different. You don't get nothing like this nowhere. Everybody move like brothers, and then everybody from different places. Milwaukee, St. Louis, Detroit, Texas, Atlanta, Cali. You know what I'm saying? Florida. We got people from everywhere, and everybody move as one.
Behind the scenes, the Flenory brothers were allegedly moving thousands of kilos of cocaine through Mexican cartel pipelines, building a $270 million drug empire that stretched across 12 states.
As Meech told the Connect one time, the Connect asked Meech, well, how many can you do? He said, how many can I do? He told the Connect, a cartel. Not just somebody selling. He said, you ain't got enough.
Terry Flenory handled the cartel supply. Big Meech handled the spotlight. Then the DEA wiretapped a phone, and what they heard started exposing the pipeline.
They had 1,100 hours of Terry on the phone talking about illicit activity.
He was a little more laid back, but he loved that phone, and that phone got us in trouble.
Demetrius Edward Flenory and Terry Lee Flenory grew up in southwest Detroit with their sister Nicole, close to the small industrial cities of River Rouge and Ecorse. By the late 1980s, both brothers were still in high school and already selling cocaine. Their crew went by 50 Boys, named after the $50 bags they moved on the block. Demetrius, who went by Meechy at the time, dropped out in the 10th grade at age 16 to sell full-time. The decision paid off fast. Within a few years, the brothers graduated from $50 bags to moving 2 kilos of cocaine per week. They built a small network of pushers scattered across Detroit's southwest side and the surrounding factory town suburbs, River Rouge, Ecorse, Willow Run. It was a local operation, but it was efficient, and the money was coming in faster than anything their neighborhood had ever seen. By the early 1990s, the Flenory brothers had pushed beyond Michigan. They set up distribution lines in Georgia, Alabama, Illinois, Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, and Ohio. What started as 2 teenagers selling $50 bags in southwest Detroit had become a legitimate interstate cocaine distribution network, and the 2 brothers split the work in a way that would define BMF for the next decade. Big Meech moved to Atlanta and built the distribution hub. Atlanta became the epicenter, the city where cartel cocaine spread outward to dozens of markets across the South, the Midwest, and the East Coast. Terry, who went by Southwest T, relocated to Los Angeles and took on the single most important job in the organization, securing the supply. From LA, Terry established direct relationships with Mexican drug cartels, and that connection gave BMF access to wholesale cocaine at prices that undercut every competitor in their markets. The pipeline was clean and efficient. Cartel cocaine crossed the border into California. Terry's people received it in Los Angeles, and from there it moved east through the organization's network to Big Meech's distribution hub in Atlanta. From Atlanta, the product fanned out nationwide. By 2000, the Flenory brothers had built a large organization overseeing multi-kilogram cocaine distribution sales in Alabama, California, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, North Carolina, Ohio, and Tennessee.
As Meech told the Connect one time, the Connect asked Meech, well, how many can you do? He said, how many can I do? He told the Connect, a cartel, not just somebody selling. He said, you ain't got enough.
At their peak, the DEA estimated BMF was moving approximately 2,500 kilograms of cocaine per month through this pipeline. Newsweek later reported that the organization had over 500 members nationwide and generated more than $270 million in cocaine revenue between 1989 and 2005. The arrangement worked because the brothers had opposite personalities. Terry was quiet, calculating, and low profile. He handled the cartel relationships, managed the supply chain logistics, and stayed completely out of the spotlight because he understood that the cocaine business runs on invisibility, and the less people know your name, the longer you stay in business. Big Meech was the exact opposite. He wanted everyone in Atlanta and everyone in hip-hop to know his name, and he was willing to spend cartel money to make sure they did. In the early 2000s, Big Meech launched BMF Entertainment, officially a hip-hop record label and promotion company, practically a front to launder cocaine profits and give the organization a legitimate public face. The label signed one artist, a rapper named Blue Da Vinci, but the real function of BMF Entertainment was to put Big Meech at the center of Atlanta's hip-hop scene and to push drug money through a business that looked clean on paper. BMF Entertainment threw some of the most extravagant parties Atlanta had ever seen. Elephants, ice sculptures, painted naked women. One of the most legendary was Big Meech's birthday party at the compound in Atlanta, where he brought in live white tigers and a giraffe. Rapper Bun B, who was there that night, later recounted the scene in interviews, and Pusha T immortalized the moment on his 2018 track, If You Know, You Know. The party was so over the top that it became a reference point for an entire generation of hip-hop.
When we go out at night, whatever we spend, 50,000, 100,000 in the motherfucking club, we can afford to do it because we ain't bring it all with us. Simple.
At Magic City, one of Atlanta's most famous strip clubs, BMF was known for dropping upward of $500,000 in a single night, and Meech cycled through luxury cars from Cadillacs to Lamborghinis to Bentleys, taking after-party crowds to the presidential suite at the Buckhead Westin. Big Meech associated openly with some of the biggest names in hip-hop, including Jay-Z, Diddy, T.I., Fabulous, Trina, and especially Young Jeezy. When director Benny Boom was shooting Jeezy's Soul Survivor video, Big Meech drove a one-of-a-kind Maybach all the way from Atlanta to the set in Brooklyn and parked it right next to Jay-Z, who at the time was the president of Def Jam Records. According to multiple accounts, BMF members once blocked Jay-Z's car in at a Buckhead club, forcing him to ask their permission before he could leave. That was the energy. Meech didn't just want to be around hip-hop. He wanted hip-hop to know he was bigger than the biggest rapper in the room. Young Jeezy's connection ran deeper than promotion. In a federal cocaine conspiracy trial, former BMF foot soldier Ralphie Sims testified under oath that Jeezy purchased 4 kilograms of cocaine from BMF in a 2004 transaction in Atlanta. Sims said he was specifically instructed to make the sale by BMF's second-in-command, Chad J-Bo Brown, and Brown's lieutenant Marlon Tito Berth. Jeezy was never charged with any crime related to the testimony, but the allegation painted a picture of how deep BMF's roots ran in the Atlanta hip-hop scene, where the line between entertainment and distribution was non-existent. While Big Meech was turning himself into a celebrity, Terry was watching the attention pile up and hating every second of it. On wiretapped phone calls captured by the DEA, Terry expressed serious concern that Demetrius's partying and his endless string of lovers were drawing exactly the kind of attention that gets organizations indicted. In one intercepted call, an associate told Terry that someone in the crew did not have to shoot the guy. Terry's response, they were out of control and bringing too much attention to the family.
He was a little more laid back, but he loved that phone, and that phone got us in trouble.
Around 2003, the tension between them boiled over into a full break. The brothers had a falling out that split the entire organization in two. Terry moved to Los Angeles permanently and began running his own operation independently, maintaining his own cartel supply connections. Demetrius stayed in Atlanta with the distribution network. They stopped speaking entirely, and the two halves of BMF began operating as separate entities. The fracture was accelerated by a double homicide at Club Chaos in Atlanta's Buckhead neighborhood on November 11, 2003. 2 men were killed: Anthony Wolf Jones, a former bodyguard for Diddy, and Wolf's associate Lamont Riz Gertie.
When they come outside, he shoots at Meech and them, which caught Meech in his buttocks. If you get caught in the buttocks, you're going in the opposite direction. So you didn't want it. Meech ain't want to do nothing to him because Meech had enough people and he had enough crew outside that he could handle that stuff.
Big Meech was arrested in connection with the shooting. He'd been hit in the buttocks himself and claimed he was running away from the gunfire when it broke out. He was never indicted. Witnesses kept recanting their statements once they found out BMF was involved. As investigators later described the pattern, witnesses would initially cooperate. Then once they learned BMF was behind the incident, they go south. The double homicide remains a cold case to this day. Big Meech walked out on bond in December 2003 and went right back to the music business, financing videos, throwing parties, living exactly the way Terry had warned him not to.
He made house arrest the funnest house arrest I've ever seen any human being on God's planet Earth do.
When the brothers were eventually arrested, their defense lawyers filed a motion to try them separately. Asked about Big Meech, Terry reportedly told his attorneys, "We don't even speak. He lost his mind." The DEA had been building the case since October 28, 2003, under a joint investigation called Operation Motor City Mafia. It was a 2-year organized crime drug enforcement task force operation coordinated by the DEA's Special Operations Division, with support from IRS Criminal Investigation and the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Michigan. The investigation was designed from the start to take down the entire organization, not just the street-level dealers, but the brothers at the top. The wiretaps produced devastating evidence. Terry Flenory's cell phone alone generated 900 pages of typed transcripts over a 5-month stretch. In total, the government accumulated 6 months of wiretap recordings, conducted 25 vehicle stops, seized 500 kilograms of cocaine and $6.5 million in cash, and collected statements from as many as 30 former BMF members and associates who agreed to cooperate.
You can never ask really to be into BMF. You have to be recruited, right? And the person who recruited me was J-Bo.
One of the most damaging cooperators was Omari McCree, a high-level distributor who'd been personally favored by Demetrius. McCree regularly supplied clients with multi-kilogram quantities of cocaine. The trail to McCree started with a wiretap on a low-level crack dealer named Raphael Smurf Allison in mid-September 2004. That tap led to a mid-level dealer named DeCarlo Hoskins, who pointed investigators up the chain to McCree. When McCree was picked up on June 8, 2005, he signed a confidential source agreement and named Big Meech as the source of the cocaine, explaining that Chad J-Bo Brown would supply him with product on Meech's behalf. McCree never testified in open court, but by then, the damage was already done. On October 28, 2005, exactly 2 years to the day after the investigation launched, the DEA moved. 30 individuals were arrested. Agents seized $3 million in currency and assets, 2.5 kilograms of cocaine, and numerous weapons in a single coordinated sweep. The federal indictment charged the Flenory brothers and dozens of top lieutenants with operating a continuing criminal enterprise spanning Detroit, Atlanta, Columbus, Los Angeles, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, St. Louis, Greenville, and Louisville. The government ordered forfeiture of properties across Detroit, Canton, Southfield, Ecorse, Romulus, Lithonia in Georgia, and Los Angeles.
I thought it could kind of never happen because we had been rolling so long. And when I got busted with the money and the work, the only person on my case was me. So it started and stopped with me and everybody else was doing their thing. The show was still going on. I was in shock that they got popped and I couldn't believe that it was real. Part of my mind knew that it could happen, right? But I just couldn't believe that it was all crumbling.
The man who'd thrown tiger parties and blocked Jay-Z's car in at Buckhead clubs was now sitting in a federal holding cell. In November 2007, both brothers pleaded guilty to running a continuing criminal enterprise. Each received 30 years in federal prison. The plea effectively ended one of the largest black-run drug trafficking organizations in American history, an empire that had risen from $50 bags on a Detroit sidewalk to a direct pipeline with Mexican cartels. Terry Flenory, the quiet brother who built the cartel pipeline, was released to home confinement in 2020 under pandemic leniency guidelines. He'd served roughly 13 years of his 30-year sentence. In December 2024, President Biden commuted his remaining sentence as part of a broader clemency initiative for individuals placed on home confinement during COVID. Terry celebrated by posting a video on Instagram of himself cutting off his ankle monitor. His conviction still stands, but the prison time is over. Big Meech served his time at FCY Coleman Low in Florida. His attorney, Brittany K. Barnett, fought for a reduction, and a federal judge eventually shaved 32 months off his sentence under Sentencing Guidelines Amendment 821. He was transferred to a residential reentry program managed by the Miami Residential Reentry Management Office to serve out the remainder under supervised release. His projected full release date, January 27, 2026. Meanwhile, 50 Cent turned the entire BMF story into a hit Starz television series, with Big Meech's son, Demetrius Lil Meech Flenory Jr. playing his own father on screen. The show premiered in September 2021 and ran for multiple seasons.
I am the man that I always wanted to be. You know what I'm saying? I'm him. I'm a living legend. I'm what I always wanted to be. It's just too much time for a first-time non-violent offender. I can't point at the mistakes that brought me down because it brought me down on my brother's indictment.
Federal agents once put the entire BMF operation into perspective. Even at its height, 2,500 kilos a month, $270 million total, 500 members, distribution in a dozen states, BMF was still just the middleman. A single Mexican cartel operating in Atlanta alone had 16,000 kilos seized in one bust and $22 million in cash confiscated. That's more cocaine in one seizure than BMF moved in half a year. As one federal officer described it, dismantling BMF was merely the eradication of the middleman. The brothers who threw Tiger parties, bought Maybachs in cash, and parked next to Jay-Z were, in the eyes of the Mexican cartels who supplied them, just another customer. The pipeline didn't stop when the Flenorys went to prison. It just found new middlemen.